It's funny how this little corner of the house keeps things long after we've moved past them. The laundry area does that. It holds on to habits, extra items, quiet routines we built years ago when days were louder and faster. Now the house is calmer, but this space still hums like it's waiting for something. I notice it most in the evening when everything else has settled. The clothes are already clean, folded or waiting patiently, yet the room feels warm, like it's still working, even though no one asked it to. There's a soft buzz, a light left on, something gently pulling energy without making a fuss about it. And I find myself standing there for a moment, just listening, realizing how often we let things keep running simply because they always have. You don't have to do anything right now. Just stay with me for a bit while this thought finishes forming. Because this isn't about fixing anything or being stricter with yourself. It's about noticing what no longer needs your effort or your electricity to feel complete. Sometimes relief starts there, in recognizing that something can finally rest. I started noticing it without meaning to. An outlet tucked behind the washer, another along the wall, each one quietly holding on to something that hasn't been used in a long while. An iron that once mattered every week. A steamer kept just in case. A small backup appliance plugged in simply because unplugging it never felt urgent. None of it wrong, none of it careless. Just life continuing the way it always had, even after the pace changed. There was a time when being ready mattered. When having everything plugged in felt like staying ahead of the day. Back then, mornings moved faster and the house needed to keep up. Those habits were useful once. They carried us through busy years. But now, standing there later in the day, I can feel how much effort the room is still holding on to, even when I'm not asking anything of it. What surprised me wasn't the number of things connected. It was the feeling the space gave back. A constant, low awareness, like something unfinished. Not noisy, just quietly awake. And I realized how often we confuse readiness with necessity. Some things stay powered simply because they always have, not because they're still needed. There's a strange comfort in letting a space rest. Not by throwing anything away, not by making a point of it, but by allowing the room to be quieter when you are. When fewer things are quietly pulling energy, the air feels lighter. The room feels less busy. And so do you. The relief doesn't come from taking control or doing something perfectly. It comes from permission. Permission to let old routines soften. Permission to stop feeding power into things that are no longer serving today's life. The savings don't announce themselves. They arrive gently, as calm, as steadiness, as a sense that the house is finally breathing at the same pace you are. I remember when warmth meant something important. Clothes came out hot, almost too warm to touch, and that was how you knew they were done properly. Dry meant safe. Dry meant cared for. It was a quiet promise that nothing had been rushed and nothing had been left half-finished. That belief was passed down carefully, the same way other household wisdom was, and it settled in deep. You didn't question it, you trusted it. For a long time, that extra heat felt like responsibility. Letting the dryer run a little longer felt like being thorough, like protecting what you owned. Even now, there's a certain reassurance in hearing it keep going, in knowing everything inside is getting one more round of warmth. It feels dependable, familiar, like doing things the right way, the way you always have. But over time, I started to notice small changes. The clothes didn't feel softer anymore. They felt worn sooner. Towels lost their give. shirts thinned quietly without asking permission. The machine itself sounded more tired than it used to, working harder, longer, holding on to heat like it had something to prove. And the room stayed warm long after everything was finished, as if the house itself was still trying to catch its breath. None of that came from neglect. It came from care that simply hadn't been updated. What we were taught made sense when lives were fuller and time felt tighter. Heat was a safeguard then. But now it can become a kind of pressure. On the fabrics, on the machine, on the home that's meant to feel calm. There's a gentler ending available. When the warmth eases up, the clothes seem to relax instead of endure. The dryer settles into its work instead of pushing through it. The room cools naturally without lingering effort, and the house feels less like it's labouring in the background. Nothing important is lost in that shift. Clean is still clean. Care is still care. It simply becomes quieter, kinder. The kind of care that doesn't need to insist or overdo. And that softness spreads into the air, into the rhythm of the home, into the sense that things can be finished without being exhausted. There was a point when it began to feel like the washer was always busy, even though the days themselves had slowed down, not rushed, not demanding, just strangely repetitive. A load in the morning, another by late afternoon, none of them very full, none of them heavy enough to explain why the machine seemed to be working so often. It creates a low, persistent irritation that doesn't announce itself. You just feel it when you reach for the detergent again and think, didn't I just do this? The room gives some clues if you stand there long enough. Shelves lined with towels that haven't seen regular use in years. Extra sets folded carefully, kept out of habit more than need. Clothing tucked away for seasons that no longer arrive the way they used to. Everything is clean, organized, and well-intended, but it's more than the present moment actually calls for. When the space is full, the laundry gets done in pieces instead of in rhythm. Those smaller loads don't feel like choices. They slip into the day quietly. One shirt here, a few towels there, something slightly worn that doesn't belong back in the drawer. The washer fills and empties more often than it should, and the energy used stretches out across the week without ever drawing attention to itself. Nothing feels excessive on its own, which is why it goes unnoticed for so long. What changes things isn't discipline or planning. It's the quiet relief of seeing only what still belongs. When fewer items are waiting nearby, the laundry naturally gathers itself. Loads become fuller without effort. Wash days spread out instead of stacking together. The machine finally has time to rest between uses, not because you decided it must, but because the space no longer demands constant motion. This is a good moment to take a breath. Not to evaluate, not to correct, just to feel how little strain is actually required here. None of this is about doing more or managing better. It's about releasing what no longer needs daily attention. When the clutter loosens, the work softens with it. The washer hums less often. The room feels calmer. And the savings arrive quietly, almost by accident, as a side effect of living with only what truly fits the life you're in now. Some habits settle in so quietly that we stop noticing them. They form around the way things used to work and stay in place long after the reason for them has passed. Appliances change over time, improving little by little, learning to handle more on their own. But the routines we built around older machines often remain frozen, carried forward out of memory rather than need. There was a time when nothing was trusted to finish without checking. Washers were louder, rougher, sometimes unpredictable. An extra rinse wasn't indulgence, it was insurance. Running a cycle again felt like responsibility, like making sure no soap lingered and nothing was left half done. Those habits weren't mistakes. They were learned carefully through years of paying attention. That kind of attentiveness stays with you. Even now, it can feel strange to let a machine complete its work without stepping back in. There's a pull to double-check, to add just one more cycle, to be certain everything is truly clean. So the washer runs longer than it needs to, not because it asks for it, but because the habit still expects it. What changes this pattern isn't correction or effort, it's acceptance. Acceptance that the tools you're using today are different from the ones that shaped those old routines. Modern machines are designed to finish thoroughly, quietly, without needing extra passes to prove themselves. They don't need the same kind of supervision to be trusted. When trust replaces repetition, the entire room feels lighter. The machine works once instead of twice. The mental checking eases. The hum ends sooner. And the energy that once went into repeating the same task stays quietly in the home, unnoticed but present. Nothing is being left undone. Clean still means clean. Care is still there, just expressed in a calmer way. Allowing a cycle to end when it's meant to end brings a sense of steadiness, the understanding that some things are allowed to be finished without extra effort. And then there's another kind of warmth that's been with us for a very long time. Not the kind you think about often, but the kind you trust without question. The familiar warmth that once meant care, cleanliness, doing things the right way. Hot water carried reassurance. It was how you knew the job was thorough, how you felt confident that nothing had been rushed or overlooked. That belief was built slowly, over years of doing what worked and sticking with it. Even now, that comfort lingers. There's something grounding about knowing the water is hot, working hard in the background, handling the details for you. It feels dependable, almost protective. You turn the setting the way you always have, not because you're thinking about it, but because it once mattered deeply. Warmth meant responsibility. It meant respect for the clothes you owned and the home you cared for. But with time, I started to notice what that constant heat brings along with it. The pipes warm fully every time. The machine takes a little longer to finish. The room holds on to that warmth, lingering in the air even after the cycle is done, as if the house itself is still exerting effort. It's not loud or demanding. It's just there, quietly using more than it needs to. What's gentle about this shift is how little actually changes. When the water isn't carrying all that heat, the clothes still come out clean. They feel calmer somehow, less strained by the process. Fabrics stay softer longer. Colors hold their shape instead of fading away unnoticed. And the machine itself seems more at ease, doing its work without the extra burden. Nothing important disappears. There's no sense of cutting back or doing without. The care is still present, just expressed in a lighter way. The home seems to respond to that softness. Energy moves through it more slowly, more thoughtfully. And that creates a kind of quiet balance, where warmth is still there when it's truly needed, but no longer demanded every time. In that gentle adjustment, the house settles. The work finishes without strain. And what's left behind is ease. The feeling that caring for your home doesn't have to mean asking it to work harder than necessary. You notice it in your body before it ever becomes a thought. The way you have to shift sideways to reach something. The small pause before you bend because there isn't quite enough room. The sense that the space doesn't move with you, it resists you. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet awkwardness that makes every step feel slightly heavier than it should. The laundry area starts asking for more effort than the task itself. Reaching around stacked items, pulling baskets away just to open a door fully, standing at an angle because the space has slowly filled in around the machines. It's not clutter in the obvious sense. Everything belongs. Everything was placed with intention at some point. But over time, the room lost its margins. Machines don't complain about that. They keep working, even when their surroundings press in on them. They run longer, not because they're broken, but because they're boxed in by what's nearby. Hoses bend a little tighter. Doors don't open as freely. Nothing fails outright. It just all takes more effort than it used to. And that extra effort shows up quietly, in the way cycles seem to drag on, in the way the room never quite feels finished when the work is done, in the subtle sense that both you and the machines are doing more negotiating than necessary. When the space opens back up, the change is almost immediate, and surprisingly physical. You can move without adjusting yourself. The machines seem to settle into their work instead of pushing through it. Doors swing the way they're meant to. The task ends cleanly, without lingering resistance. It doesn't feel like improvement. It feels like cooperation. Like the room is finally working with you instead of around you. That ease carries weight. When the space stops fighting for room, everything else relaxes. The machines finish when they're ready to finish. You don't feel the need to hover or compensate, and the energy that once went into pushing past obstacles simply stays where it belongs, leaving the room quieter, steadier, and easier to exist in. There's always that one small pile, not big enough to worry about, not important enough to stop what you're doing. Just a few things set aside with the quiet promise of later. Later today, later this evening, later when there's a minute. It sits there patiently, almost politely, waiting for the moment you remember it again. Most of the time, you do remember, just not soon enough. A shirt left in the washer a little too long. Towels meant to be moved, but forgotten until the next morning. Laundry that was finished, then quietly paused by life itself. It happens to everyone. It's the kind of oversight that comes with full days and changing rhythms, not carelessness. There's a gentle humour in realising how often that small delay turns into a repeat performance. The same clothes going through again, not because they were dirty, but because they sat too long. Not because anything went wrong, but because time slipped by unnoticed. So the machine hums again, doing work it already completed once. It's never dramatic. No one announces it. You just notice you're pressing the same buttons again, shaking your head a little, half smiling at yourself. The house doesn't mind. The machine doesn't argue. It simply repeats the task, quietly pulling more energy into something that was already finished. What changes isn't effort or discipline. It's awareness, softened by kindness. When laundry finds its way out of the machine without delay, the whole process feels complete instead of ongoing. There's no second round, no correcting, no quiet sense of unfinished business lingering in the background. That's where the relief lives, in fewer do-overs, in tasks that end when they're meant to end. The power saved isn't loud or impressive. It's calm. It's the absence of repetition. And that absence brings something better than efficiency. It brings ease. The pile disappears not with pressure, but with timing. And when things are finished and truly finished, the home settles a little more comfortably into itself, free from the habit of doing the same work twice. By the time the day is winding down, there's often a quiet sense of being finished. The laundry's done. The room has served its purpose. You've moved on to other parts of the evening. And yet that space sometimes lingers in the background, still awake in small ways that don't announce themselves. It isn't about fixing anything. It's more like a courtesy. The same way you turn down a lamp when leaving a room, or close a door gently instead of letting it swing. There's something satisfying about letting the laundry area settle completely when its work is over, allowing it to match the slower rhythm of the rest of the house. Nothing dramatic happens. The room simply stops asking for attention. After that, thoughts tend to drift, not forward but back, to how that space used to feel years ago. Louder, busier, packed with routines that belong to a different season of life, and how, without much effort, it's changed alongside you. Maybe it's simpler now, maybe quieter. Maybe it asks less of you than it once did. Those are the kinds of observations worth sharing. Not plans, not intentions, just recognition. How a familiar corner of the home has softened over time. How it's learned to keep pace with who you are now. As the evening continues, there's no need to add anything else. Perhaps later you'll notice what's still quietly on when the work itself has already ended. That noticing doesn't demand action. It just brings awareness. I'm glad we spent this stretch of time together. There's value in moving gently, in letting things finish fully, and in knowing that staying connected can feel as simple as keeping company in the quiet.